My name is Sarah. I am 32 years old. I live in a small town where everyone knows everyone. I thought I had the perfect life. I was wrong. For 8 years, I was married to David. He was my high school sweetheart. We met when I was 16. He was 17. We fell in love quickly. We married young. Everyone said we were perfect together. David worked at the bank downtown. I taught kindergarten at the local school. We had our routines. Coffee together every morning. Dinner at 6 every night. Movie nights on Fridays. Church on Sundays. Life felt safe. Life felt good. We talked about having children. We saved money for a house. We planned our future together. I trusted him completely. I never questioned anything he did. I never looked at his phone. I never doubted his love. But trust can be a dangerous thing. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Sometimes the life we think we have is just an illusion. Sometimes everything we believe in can crumble in a single moment. That moment came on a Tuesday in March. The weather was getting warmer. Spring was coming. I was excited about planting flowers in our garden. I had no idea that my world was about to fall apart. It started with small things. David began working late more often. He said the bank was busy with loan applications. Spring was always a busy time for home buyers. I believed him. I trusted him. He started taking phone calls outside. "It's work," he would say. "Just boring bank stuff." He would walk to the backyard to talk. I thought he was being considerate. He didn't want to disturb me while I graded papers. His phone started buzzing at strange times. During dinner. During our morning coffee. Late at night while we watched TV. He would glance at it quickly. Then he would put it face down on the table. "Who keeps texting you?" I asked one evening. "Just Mark from work," he said. Mark was his supervisor. He's stressed about the quarterly reports. I nodded. I went back to my book. I trusted him. But the late nights got more frequent. The mysterious phone calls continued. David seemed distant, distracted. When I tried to talk to him about my day, he would nod absently. His mind was somewhere else. "Are you okay?" I asked him one Saturday morning. "You seem tired lately." "I'm fine," he said. But he wouldn't look at me when he said it. He stared into his coffee cup instead. "Just work stress. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was. My job was stressful too, but I didn't shut him out. I didn't take secret phone calls. I didn't work until midnight every other day. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. But I didn't want to believe it. I pushed the feeling down. I told myself I was being paranoid. Marriage required trust. I loved David. He loved me. That's what I told myself every day. The changes in David became more obvious. He stopped asking about my day. He stopped telling me about his. We ate dinner in silence more often. He would scroll through his phone while I talked about my students. "Mrs. Peterson, Tommy drew the most amazing picture today," I would say. David would reply, not looking up from his screen. "He drew his whole family, including his new baby sister." That's nice. But he wasn't listening. He wasn't there. Not really. Our Friday movie nights stopped happening. David was always too tired, too stressed, too busy preparing for work the next week. We used to curl up on the couch together. We used to share popcorn and laugh at silly comedies. Now he went to bed early while I watched movies alone. Our morning coffee routine changed too. Before, we would sit together and plan our day. We would talk about everything and nothing. Now David would drink his coffee quickly while checking his phone. He would kiss my forehead quickly and rush out the door. "See you tonight," he would call over his shoulder. But many nights, he didn't come home until very late. Long after dinner was cold. Long after I had given up waiting for him. I started eating alone most evenings. I would make his favorite meals and put them in the refrigerator. He would eat them later, alone, while I was already in bed. We were living in the same house, but we were strangers. My friends started noticing too. "How's David?" my friend Lisa asked during lunch at school. "He's fine," I said automatically. "Just working a lot." "You look tired," she said gently. "Everything okay at home?" I wanted to tell her the truth. I wanted to say that my husband felt like a stranger, that we barely talked anymore, that I felt lonely even when he was in the same room. But I couldn't find the words. I couldn't admit that my perfect marriage might not be perfect after all. "We're fine," I said instead. "Just busy." But we weren't fine. And I was starting to realize that busy was just an excuse. The worst part was the way he looked at me. Or rather, the way he didn't look at me. His eyes would slide past me when I spoke. He would check his phone instead of meeting my gaze. It felt like he was already gone, even when his body was still there. I began to dread coming home. The house felt empty even when David's car was in the driveway. The silence between us grew louder every day. I found myself staying late at school to grade papers I could have finished in half the time. Anything to avoid the awkward quiet of our dinner table. The truth came out on a Tuesday evening in March. David said he was working late again. Another lone meeting, he claimed. I decided to surprise him with his favorite sandwich from the deli downtown. I thought maybe if I showed up with food, we could talk. Maybe we could fix whatever was broken between us. The bank was dark when I arrived. No cars in the parking lot. No lights in the windows. David wasn't there. He had lied to me. I sat in my car for a long time. My hands were shaking. The sandwich bag crinkled in my lap. Where was my husband? Who was he with? Why had he lied? I drove around town slowly. I didn't know what I was looking for. I just needed to move. I needed to do something with the terrible energy building in my chest. Then I saw his car, parked outside Rosie's café on the edge of town. Through the window, I could see two people sitting close together in a corner booth. Very close. Too close. David was there. But he wasn't alone. She was beautiful. Long dark hair. Bright smile. She was laughing at something he said. He was leaning toward her across the table. His hand was covering hers. The way he used to hold my hand when we were young and in love. I watched them for 10 minutes. Maybe 15. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. They looked so happy together. So comfortable. Like they had been meeting like this for a long time. This wasn't a first date. This wasn't a chance encounter. This was an affair. My husband was having an affair. I drove home in a daze. I sat in our driveway for another 20 minutes. I couldn't figure out how to feel. Angry. Sad. Betrayed. All of those feelings swirled together in my chest like a storm. When David came home 2 hours later, I was sitting at the kitchen table. The sandwich I had bought him was still in the bag. Still cold. "Hey," he said casually. "How was your day? How was your loan meeting?" I asked. He paused. Just for a second. But I saw it. "Fine. Long. You know how it is." "I went to the bank tonight," I said quietly. He froze. His keys were still in his hand. He didn't turn around to look at me. "I brought you a sandwich," I continued. But you weren't there. The silence stretched between us. Finally, he turned around. His face was pale. Guilty. Sarah. Who is she? I asked. What? The woman at Rosie's café. Who is she? He sat down heavily in the chair across from me. His shoulders sagged. He looked older suddenly. Tired. Defeated. Her name is Michelle, he said softly. How long? 4 months. 4 months. While I was planning our garden. While I was cooking his favorite meals. While I was trusting him completely, he was falling in love with someone else. Do you love her? I asked. He was quiet for a long time. When he finally answered, his voice was barely a whisper. Yes. That one word shattered everything. 8 years of marriage. 16 years of love. Gone in a single syllable. I don't remember much about the rest of that night. David tried to explain, but his words sounded far away. He talked about being lonely, about feeling disconnected from me, about not meaning for it to happen, about how much he cared about me but how different things felt with Michelle. I heard the words, but they didn't make sense. Nothing made sense anymore. I asked him to leave. Not forever, I said. Just for tonight. I needed space to think, to breathe, to figure out how to exist in this new reality where my husband loved someone else. He packed a bag and went to his brother's house. I watched his taillights disappear down our street and wondered if this was how my marriage would end. With him driving away in the dark while I stood alone in our doorway. The house felt enormous without him. Every room echoed. Every shadow looked wrong. I walked through the halls we had painted together, past the photos of our wedding day, past the couch where we used to fall asleep watching late-night movies. Everything looked the same, but everything was different now. This wasn't our home anymore. It was just a house where I lived alone. I called in sick to work the next day. I couldn't imagine facing my students with this terrible secret burning in my chest. How could I teach children about trust and kindness when my own life had just revealed how cruel people could be to each other? I spent the day in bed, alternating between crying and staring at the ceiling. The phone rang several times. David's name appeared on the screen each time. I let it go to voicemail. My sister Emma came over that evening. David had called her, she said. He was worried about me. He wanted to make sure I was okay. The irony was almost funny. The man who had just destroyed my life was worried about my well-being. Emma brought soup and tissues and stayed with me while I told her everything. She held my hand while I cried. She didn't say much, but her presence was enough. The next few days blurred together. I went back to work because I needed the distraction. My students were a blessing. Their innocent questions and silly jokes forced me to focus on something other than my pain. But the evenings were brutal. Coming home to an empty house. Eating dinner alone. Going to bed in a room that still smelled like David's cologne. He came by on Friday to get more of his clothes. We were awkward with each other, like strangers trying to be polite. He asked if we could talk. Really talk. About what went wrong between us. About whether there was any way to fix this. I wasn't ready for that conversation. I wasn't sure I would ever be ready. Michelle wasn't just a fling, he explained. She worked at the insurance office across from the bank. They had started talking during lunch breaks. Just friendly conversation at first. But it grew into something more. She understood him, he said. She listened to his dreams about starting his own business. She shared his love of hiking and camping, things I had never been interested in. She made him feel young again, alive again. Each detail felt like a small knife in my heart, not because I was jealous of Michelle herself, but because David was describing feelings he used to have about me. When had I stopped listening to his dreams? When had we stopped sharing interests? When had our love become routine instead of exciting? I wondered if I had failed him somehow, if I had pushed him away without realizing it. But then I remembered all the nights I had tried to start conversations and he had been too tired to talk. All the times I had suggested weekend trips and he had said he was too busy. All the moments I had reached for his hand and he had been distracted by his phone. I hadn't pushed him away. We had grown apart slowly, gradually, so quietly that neither of us had noticed until it was too late. And instead of talking to me about it, instead of working to fix what was broken between us, he had found someone else. The betrayal cut deeper than just the affair itself. It was the months of lies, the secret phone calls, the pretending everything was fine while he was falling in love with another woman. If he had been unhappy, why hadn't he told me? If our marriage was in trouble, why hadn't we tried to save it? We had promised to love each other through better and worse. But at the first sign of worse, he had run to someone else's arms. I started seeing a counselor the following week. Dr. Martinez was kind and patient. She helped me understand that David's affair was about his choices, not my failures. She taught me that I couldn't control other people's actions, only my own responses. She showed me how to separate my worth as a person from my worth as a wife. These lessons were hard to learn. Some days I believed them. Other days I fell back into self-blame and despair. My friends and family rallied around me. Lisa brought dinner twice a week. Emma called every evening to check on me. My mother flew in from across the country to spend a long weekend helping me figure out practical things like finances and legal options. Their love was a lifeline during the darkest period of my life. I learned that while romantic love could disappear without warning, the love of friends and family was steady and true. David and I started marriage counseling 3 weeks after that terrible Tuesday night. He had ended things with Michelle, he said. He wanted to fight for our marriage. But trust, once broken, is not easily repaired. Every time he was 5 minutes late coming home, I wondered where he had been. Every time his phone buzzed, I tensed up. Every time he said he loved me, I heard the echo of him saying he loved her too. The counseling sessions were painful but necessary. Dr. Rodriguez, our therapist, made us talk about things we had been avoiding for years. We learned that we had both been lonely in our marriage long before Michelle appeared. We had stopped really seeing each other. We had become roommates instead of partners. When did you stop feeling heard by David? Dr. Rodriguez asked me during one session. I thought about it carefully. Maybe 2 years ago. I would tell him about my day and he would nod, but I could tell he wasn't really listening. His mind was always somewhere else. And when did you stop sharing your dreams with Sarah? She asked David. He was quiet for a long time. I wanted to start my own business, but every time I brought it up, Sarah would talk about the risks, about our mortgage, about needing stable income. I felt like she didn't believe in me. These conversations were hard. We both had to admit our failures. We both had to take responsibility for letting our connection fade. The affair was David's choice, but the problems in our marriage belonged to both of us. Slowly, very slowly, we began to talk to each other again. Really talk. About our fears, our disappointments, our hopes for the future. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks. Days when the pain felt too fresh. Days when I couldn't look at him without seeing him with her. But there were also small breakthroughs. The first time he made me laugh again. The first time we had dinner together without awkward silence. The first time I caught him looking at me the way he used to when we were young. Recovery from betrayal is not linear. Some days I felt strong and hopeful. Other days I felt broken all over again. I learned to be patient with myself, to accept that healing takes time, to celebrate small victories. David was patient too. He answered every question I had, no matter how painful. He showed me his phone whenever I asked. He came home early from work to prove he was where he said he would be. He was trying to earn back my trust, one day at a time. We started dating each other again. It sounds strange to say about your own husband, but we needed to fall in love again. We went to movies. We took walks. We talked about books and dreams and silly things that made us laugh. We remembered why we had chosen each other all those years ago. The forgiveness came gradually, not all at once, but in small waves. The first time I said, "I love you," and meant it completely. The first time we made plans for the future together. The first time I looked at him and saw my husband instead of the man who had betrayed me. It's been 2 years since that terrible Tuesday night. David and I are still married. We're still working on our relationship every day. Some people think I was foolish to stay with him. Some people think once a cheater, always a cheater. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm naive to believe that people can change. But I've learned something important about love and forgiveness. Real love isn't just the butterflies and passion of the beginning. Real love is the choice to keep trying when things get hard. It's the decision to fight for something worth saving, even when it seems broken beyond repair. David and I both had to change. I had to learn to really listen to his dreams, even the ones that scared me. He had to learn to be honest about his feelings, even when the truth was difficult. We both had to learn that marriage requires constant attention. It's not something you can put on autopilot and expect it to survive. Trust is still a work in progress. Some days are harder than others. When David is late coming home, my heart still races a little. When his phone rings at an unusual time, I still feel that familiar knot in my stomach. But those moments are getting rarer. The good days outnumber the bad days now. We're different people than we were before the affair. In some ways, we're better. We don't take each other for granted anymore. We talk about problems instead of letting them fester. We make time for each other every day, even if it's just 10 minutes over morning coffee. I'm not the same Sarah who lived in blind trust for 8 years. I'm more cautious now, more aware. But I'm also stronger. I've learned that I can survive heartbreak. I've learned that I have people who love me no matter what. I've learned that I'm worth fighting for, whether my marriage survives or not. Some days I wonder what would have happened if David had never met Michelle. Would we have continued drifting apart until one day we woke up as complete strangers? Would we have lived the rest of our lives in polite indifference? In a strange way, the affair forced us to confront problems we had been ignoring for years. It nearly destroyed us, but it also gave us a chance to rebuild something better. I'm not grateful for the betrayal. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone, but I'm grateful for who we've become because of it. We're more honest with each other now, more intentional about our love, more aware of how precious and fragile trust really is. To anyone reading this who has been where I was that night, sitting at your kitchen table while your world falls apart, you are stronger than you know. Whether you choose to fight for your relationship or choose to walk away, you will survive this. The pain that feels endless right now will eventually become bearable. The trust that feels impossible to rebuild can grow again, slowly but surely. If you've ever felt like me, sitting alone in an empty house wondering how your life got so broken, you're not alone. Millions of people have walked this path of betrayal and heartbreak. Some of their stories end in divorce. Others end in renewed love. All of them end in survival. All of them end in growth. Your story will too. The choice of how to respond to betrayal is deeply personal. There's no right answer. Trust your instincts. Surround yourself with people who love you. Seek help when you need it. And remember that whatever you choose, you deserve to be loved faithfully and completely. Never settle for less than that, no matter what.